Welcome to the UFO Forums podcast.
It's great to be back.
We are hitting a bit of a milestone today. This is episode 5. And frankly, if you've been following us from the start, you know we don't really shy away from the heavy hitters.
No, we definitely dive right in.
But today we are opening a file that, well, it usually sits at the very top of the too hot to handle stack. We are doing a deep dive into the Travis Walton abduction case.
Oh, yeah. This is, it's the third rail of ufology. You touch this one, and you either become a believer or you spend the rest of your career trying to tear it down.
Right.
It is arguably the most controversial and yet one of the most thoroughly documented cases in the entire history of the phenomenon.
Absolutely. We're talking about 1975, Snowflake, Arizona.
Yeah.
But before we get beamed up into all the details, just a little bit of housekeeping.
The necessary stuff.
Yeah. If you are enjoying these deep dives, if you like what we're doing here, please take a second to like and subscribe. It really, really helps us keep the lights on and the tapes rolling.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Okay, formalities done. Let's get into the woods.
And the woods are really where this story lives and dies.
Right. Because usually when we hear these abduction stories, it's a solo affair. You know,
Oh, yeah.
Someone is driving alone on a dark highway, or maybe they're asleep in their bed.
Right. It's one person's word against the world. It's easy to dismiss.
So easy. But this is different. This isn't just a story about a man seeing a light. This is a story about 7 men, a police investigation, suspicion of murder, and a disappearance that lasted 5 agonizing days.
That is the hook, isn't it? I mean, the central tension here isn't just, do aliens exist?
Yeah.
It is a much more grounded, much more gritty question that the local authorities had to answer.
Which was?
Did 6 loggers murder their friend with a chainsaw and then invent the most insane sci-fi story imaginable to cover it up?
Exactly. For 5 days, that was the working theory. The town of Snowflake, Arizona, they weren't looking for little green men. They were looking for a body. They were dragging the rivers, searching for a shallow grave. And that context, I think it changes everything about how you have to analyze this. This is a murder mystery that just accidentally became a UFO story.
It completely frames the narrative in a very specific way.
Yeah.
We aren't starting with the fantastical. We're starting with, the sociological reaction to a potential very violent crime.
Yeah.
So we have to look at this case study not just as a ghost story, but as a stress test for witness credibility, for polygraph data, and for how a small, tight-knit community reacts when faced with the truly unknown.
So let's set the scene. Let's go back. It's November 5, 1975, the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. Now, I've never been there, but the descriptions, they're pretty intense. This is the Mogollon Rim.
It is the largest ponderosa pine forest in the world.
Wow, that's a lot of trees.
It's a huge amount of trees, and it's rugged, remote terrain. You have to imagine this last frontier kind of atmosphere. It's beautiful for sure, but it's also really unforgiving.
And working in this environment, you have a crew of loggers. And let's be honest, the sources are pretty clear. These aren't choir boys.
No, not at all. They're described as a rough-looking bunch.
Yeah.
You've got Mike Rogers. He's the crew boss. He's the guy who holds the contract with the Forest Service.
Okay.
Then you have Travis Walton, who is young, just 22 years old. And then the rest of the crew, Ken Peterson, John Goulet, Alan Dallas, Dwayne Smith, and then there's the kid, Steve Pierce.
He was only 17, right?
Yeah, he was just a kid and supposedly lying about his age to even get the job.
Because this is hard work. They are doing something called timber stand improvement.
Right, which sounds technical, but it basically means they are thinning out all the scrub brush and undergrowth. It's backbreaking labor to try and prevent forest fires.
And on this specific day, November 5th, the pressure is really on.
That context is absolutely key here. Mike Rogers, the boss, he is way behind on his contract. Winter's coming, the snow is threatening to shut them down completely.
And if they don't finish?
They don't get paid. Simple as that.
Yeah.
So they are pushing it hard. They are working from 6 in the morning until the sun goes down. They're exhausted, they're dirty, and they are probably, pretty cranky.
So the sun goes down, it's getting cold, it's early November in the mountains, and they all pile into Mike Rogers' pickup truck to head back to town.
It's a long drive out on these rough dirt logging roads. Everyone is just crammed into this truck. And that is when they see it.
The visual anomaly.
That's a good way to put it.
At first, it's just these glimmers of light through the trees, and immediately their minds go to all the rational explanations. Is it the moon coming up?
And one of them, I think it was Mike Rogers, actually looked and saw the moon was in a totally different part of the sky, so they ruled that out right away.
So what's next? A fire? They're loggers. Fire is the big enemy.
That was the next thought. Or maybe a plane crash?
Okay, that makes sense.
But John Gillette, one of the crew, he had a background working on aircraft carriers. He looked at it and knew right away it wasn't a plane crash. The quality of the light was just different.
How so?
They described it as yellowish, almost like light shining through an old lampshade. It wasn't flickering like a fire. It was a steady, solid glow.
And Mike Rogers, who's driving, he floors it. He wants to see what this thing is. They come over a ridge, break into a clearing, and boom, there it is.
A large, silver-colored object,
Just hovering.
hovering less than 100 feet away from them. They describe it as a flattened disc. The dimensions they gave were about 20 feet wide, maybe 8 feet thick.
It wasn't quiet.
No. And this is where the detail gets so visceral for me. It's not just something they saw. It was the sound. They described this high-pitched beep or a sound like a turbine generator.
But it wasn't just a sound you hear with your ears.
Exactly. They said the frequency shifted. It went from a high pitch that hurt their ears down into this low rumble that you could literally feel in your chest. Mike Rogers said he could feel the vibration on the steering wheel and even on the glass of the truck window where his elbow was resting. That is such a specific physical detail.
It is.
It adds this layer of credibility. It wasn't just a light in the sky. It was a physical presence that was affecting their immediate environment.
And this is the moment, the exact moment where everything goes completely wrong. You have 7 guys in a truck. Most people, I think, would lock the doors, hide under the dashboard.
It hit the floor, yeah.
What does Travis Walton do?
He opens the door.
He jumps out while the truck is still moving.
It was a completely impulsive decision. Travis admitted later in interviews that he was, quote, showing off.
Showing off? For who?
For the other guys, I guess.
Yeah.
He was the kind of guy who was naturally curious, maybe a little bit fearless, a bit of a daredevil. He just thought, this thing's going to fly away in a second, and I want to get a good look before it goes.
So he jumps out, and he starts walking, actually walking toward this hovering disc.
And the rest of the crew is screaming at him from the truck, Travis, get back in here. What are you doing, you idiot? But he just keeps going.
He gets into a crouch like he's stalking it.
He's almost treating it like an animal he's trying to get close to.
Yeah.
And then the craft reacts.
It starts to wobble.
It begins to wobble. And that movement, that sudden instability, is what triggers the next event. Travis stands up straight, maybe realizing he's made a huge mistake, maybe he's trying to turn back, and then the beam hits him.
A blue-green beam of light.
The witnesses said the entire forest lit up like daylight. This wasn't a flashlight beam. This was an explosion of pure energy.
And the description of the impact is just horrifying. It didn't just burn him or knock him down. John Gillette said Travis was hurled backward 10 feet like he had no bones.
Limp as a rag doll in midair.
Yeah.
And the sound that came with it was described as a stun-like force. A crack, like a lightning strike, but somehow different. Travis hits the ground, and to the 6 men watching in absolute horror from the truck, he looked dead.
One of them, Steve Pierce, the kid, described him as looking like charcoal. They thought he was fried. They thought he was gone.
And panic sets in. Just total primal panic.
I can't even imagine.
Mike Rogers just screams. He slams his foot on the gas pedal, and they flee. They leave him there.
And look, it's so easy to judge from the comfort of a recording studio, right?
Yeah.
But you have a 20-foot silver disc shooting what looks like a death ray at your friend.
Flight or fight kicks in.
And they chose flight. Hardcore.
They drove like hell. It was pure, unadulterated terror. They didn't stop until they were about a quarter mile down the road. And when they finally stopped the truck, the adrenaline starts to crash, and the reality of what they just did hits them.
Why do you stop?
They stopped because they saw a light, presumably the craft, lift up out of the woods and just shoot toward the horizon.
Yeah.
Gone in an instant.
So the threat is gone, and now they have to make a choice?
Yeah. Do we keep running? Or do we go back? And they argue. It's chaos. Some guys want to just drive and never look back. Some want to go back for Travis.
Eventually, they turn around.
Humanity wins out. They turn the truck around and head back to the site.
Imagine that drive back.
They had one flashlight.
Right.
That's it. So you have this pitch black woods. It's completely silent now. No turbine noise. Just the wind in the pines. They shine the headlights on the clearing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Just nothing.
No Travis. No footprints. No blood. No scorched earth where he fell. Just the forest. He was simply gone.
That is absolutely chilling. You see your friend get zapped, you run, you come back 10 minutes later, and he's been erased.
Erased is the perfect word for it. And that is the moment the UFO story ends for them, at least for a little while, and the police investigation begins.
Because now They have to go back to town and tell someone what just happened.
And who is going to believe that story?
So let's talk about that drive back to civilization. You've got 6 grown men, loggers, tough guys, and they are openly weeping.
Completely distraught. They pull up to a shopping center in Heber, Arizona, to use a payphone.
Ken Peterson makes the call. It's about 7:30 p.m. He calls the sheriff's office. Deputy Chuck Ellison is the first one to respond. He meets them there at the shopping center.
Now, you have to put yourself in Deputy Ellison's shoes for a minute. You get a call about a missing person. You show up and you see 6 men stomping around, crying, just looking absolutely shell-shocked.
Ellison actually said later that if they were acting, they were awfully good at it.
He did. He was the first official to sense that whatever happened, these guys genuinely believed it. Then Sheriff Marlon Gillespie arrives a bit later.
And this is where the skepticism really kicks in.
Oh, for sure. You have to understand the mindset of law enforcement here. They listen to the story flying saucer, blue beam, zap, and they immediately file that under, okay, sure. What they're really thinking is fight, alcohol, accident, cover up.
Right. The subtext is, just tell us where the body is so we can all go home.
It was more than a vibe. It was the active pressure of the investigation. The prevailing theory in Snowflake wasn't that Travis was on a spaceship. It was that the crew had gotten into an argument. Maybe Travis was killed, or maybe he was killed accidentally with a piece of equipment, and they hid the body to avoid manslaughter charges.
The search effort was massive, though. I mean, they didn't just write it off.
No. To their credit, they launched a full-scale search. They had helicopters, horse-mounted officers, jeeps, dozens of volunteers. They combed those woods.
They even brought in a dog team, right?
They did. They brought in a tracking dog from the Arizona State Prison, a bloodhound.
A prison dog. That's serious.
It is. But here's the narrative tension. The police are squeezing the crew the entire time. They're separating them, interrogating them over and over. Come on, just tell us the truth.
And the crew is sticking to the story.
To the letter. Not because they rehearsed it, but because, according to them, it's just what happened. But the longer Travis stays missing, the darker it looks for Mike Rogers and his guys.
And this brings us to the pivotal moment of the whole investigation. The thing that, in my opinion, makes this case so incredibly difficult to just dismiss out of hand.
The polygraph test.
The polygraph tests. We have to stop here and really drill down into this because I think people have a lot of misconceptions about lie detectors.
Yes. This is crucial evidence. We need to unpack this very carefully.
Usually a skeptic will say, oh, polygraphs are unreliable. They're not admissible in court. You can beat them.
And to be fair, in a vacuum, a single polygraph on a single person can be inconclusive. But what happened with the Walton crew wasn't a standard test. This was a siege.
A siege.
You'd have multiple subjects all witnessing the same traumatic event under extreme duress from a murder investigation. The psychological pressure is immense.
To set the scene for us, who was the examiner?
A man named Cy Gilson. He was from the Arizona Department of Public Safety. This wasn't some guy they found in the Yellow Pages. He was a former state trooper, highly respected, and expert in his field. And he walks into this with a very specific strategy.
He wants to break them.
Absolutely. He treats them like suspects. He gathers them at the Navajo County Courthouse and essentially tells them, nobody is leaving this building until I get the truth. And he does something very, very smart.
What's that?
He looks at the group, these tough loggers, and he identifies what he thinks is the weak link.
A kid. Steve Pierce.
Exactly. 17 years old. He looks scared to death. Gilson figures if this is a conspiracy, if they bashed Travis over the head and buried him in the woods, the 17-year-old is going to be the one to crumble under pressure. So he decides to test Steve first.
That is some high-stakes poker. If Steve cracks, the whole thing is over. The other guys are likely going to jail for murder.
It's all on the line. So Gilson hooks him up, and he asks the most blunt, direct questions possible. Did you murder Travis Walton? Did you see a UFO? Did you see the beam of light hit him?
And the results?
Steve Pierce passed. Conclusively. Gilson was shocked, but he keeps going. He goes down the line. Mike Rogers. Passes. Ken Peterson. Passes. John Gillette. Passes. Dwayne Smith. Passes.
So that's 5 out of 6.
5 out of 6 pass conclusively. The 6th man, Alan Dallas, his test was ruled inconclusive. But it's important to note, he didn't fail. He was apparently very uncooperative, had a prior record, and was actively trying to fight the machine.
But 5 clean passes.
5 clean passes. And let's look at the statistics here. Edward Gelb, a past president of the American Polygraph Association, he reviewed these charts later. He stated that the odds of 5 men agreeing on a complex lie, maintaining the same physiological baseline under that level of extreme stress, and all passing a professionally administered polygraph.
What are the odds?
He said they're 1,000,000 to 1.
1,000,000 to 1. So you might not believe in spaceships, but if you believe in statistics, you have to admit these men believe they were telling the truth.
And Sheriff Gillespie was forced to accept that. He didn't have to believe in UFOs, but he had to believe that they believed they saw a UFO. The murder theory just evaporated because the lie detector said these men did not kill Travis Walton.
So now the town, the police, they're all in this weird limbo. The murderers are cleared, but the victim is still gone. 5 days pass. The family's going crazy. The national press is swarming the town. And then, on November 11th, 1975, the phone rings.
It rings at the home of Grant Neff, Travis Walton's brother-in-law. The call is coming from a payphone in Heber, Arizona, not far from Snowflake.
Imagine getting that call. Grant, this is Travis. I need help bad.
Grant actually thought it was a prank at first. He almost hung up the phone, but Travis was screaming, just frantic. So Grant and Travis's older brother, Dwayne, they race over to Heber, and what they find there is not a man who's been camping out for 5 days.
No, not at all. They find him crumpled in the bottom of the phone booth, and the physical description is haunting. He had lost 12 pounds in 5 days.
He had 5 days of beard growth, and he was deeply traumatized.
Crying.
The witness described him as holding onto his brother Dwayne like a baby, just weeping, terrified. He was dehydrated, physically wasted, in shock.
And here's where it gets really, really strange for me. The disorientation. Travis had no idea he had been gone for 5 days.
That is the missing time phenomenon, but in the most extreme sense you can imagine. Travis believed only a few hours had passed. He thought it was still the same night that he disappeared.
There's that incredible moment in the source material where his brother has to tell him, feel your face.
Yes. Travis reaches up, feels the thick beard, and just goes into shock. That tactile realization that a huge chunk of time has been stolen from him, it's a terrible psychological blow.
So they get him home, and they avoid the police at first, right?
They did. The family didn't trust the authorities at that point. There was a genuine fear that if they handed Travis over, he'd be treated like a lab specimen or whisked away by some government agency. They wanted to stabilize him first, on their own terms.
But eventually, medical doctors did examine him.
They did. And the findings were consistent with his story of deprivation. He was essentially healthy but severely dehydrated, had significant weight loss. And there was a physical mark, a small puncture wound on the crook of his elbow.
The skeptics loved that one. They immediately jumped on it, said it was a needle track from drug use.
They did, but multiple doctors confirmed it was a real puncture, not a track mark from repeated injections. And most importantly, the drug tests on Travis came back completely clean. There were no drugs in his system.
So Travis is back. He's alive. But he has a story to tell. And this is where we leave the police procedural drama behind and enter the realm of pure high strangeness.
This is the part that defines the case.
Because Travis didn't just see a light and wake up in a phone booth. He remembers what happened in between.
Or at least he remembers parts of it. And his memory of waking up inside the craft, it really defies the standard gray alien narrative that we're so used to hearing now.
Let's walk through it. His first memory is waking up in a lot of pain. He's thirsty, can't breathe well. The air, he says, is wet and heavy.
He sees a bright light shining from the ceiling. And naturally, his brain tries to make sense of it. He assumes he's in a hospital. He thinks, okay, the accident happened, I'm in the ER, and these figures in orange jumpsuits must be doctors.
But then his vision starts to clear, and he realizes those are not doctors.
No, the entities he describes are very specific. They're shorter than 5 feet tall. They had these bald, domed heads that are disproportionately large for their small bodies. But the details are what stick out to me. The eyes.
Huge eyes.
Enormous eyes, almost all brown or gold. Very little white. And no eyelashes, no eyebrows. But the skin, he described the skin as looking like marshmallow.
Marshmallow. That is such a bizarrely specific and non-threatening description for something so terrifying.
It is. It implies this soft, spongy white texture. No definition, no muscle tone. It sounds almost artificial or maybe fungal. It's just weird.
And Travis panics. I mean, who wouldn't? He pushes one of them away, and he confirms that texture. It felt soft and light under his hand.
He's in full survival mode. He sees a shelf, grabs a glass-like cylinder from it, tries to break it to make a shiv, and starts swinging it around like a weapon.
And the creatures, do they attack him? Do they zap him again?
No. And this is a really interesting part of his account. They don't attack. They don't even try to restrain him. They simply back away, turn, and leave the room. It's almost as if they were afraid of him, or maybe just realized he was too volatile to handle in his current state.
So Travis is alone. He runs out of this medical bay into a hallway and finds the star map room.
This is a scene that has always fascinated me. He enters a perfectly spherical room. In the exact center, there is a single high-backed chair. He sits in it, and the instant he does, the room fills with lights.
Like a planetarium.
Exactly like a planetarium. The walls seem to disappear, and he is just staring at the cosmos. Stars and constellations projected all around him. And notice the interface. There are no joysticks, no keyboards, no buttons.
Just the chair.
He sits in the chair, and the ship responds. It suggests some kind of neural interface or a sensor-based control system that's just leagues beyond our technology.
It sounds absolutely incredible, but then the story takes another turn that I feel like gets left out of the popular retellings all the time, the human encounter.
Yes. This confuses a lot of people, and it complicates the simple alien narrative. Travis is sitting in the chair, and a figure enters the room. But it's not one of the marshmallow creatures. It looks like a tall human man.
Wearing a blue bodysuit and a glassy, bubble-like helmet.
Travis is just flooded with relief. He thinks he's been rescued. He's thinking, thank God the Air Force is here. He runs up to this guy, just babbling questions. Where am I? Who are you? What's going on?
And the man?
Says nothing. He never speaks. The silent treatment.
That's creepy.
The man just takes him by the arm and leads him out of the room. No explanation. No, take me to your leader. Just firm, silent guidance. It adds this whole other layer of confusion. Are they working together? Is this a human who works with them? Is it a screen memory, a projection to keep Travis calm? We just don't know.
So he's led out of that room, and he finds himself in a huge space.
A massive hangar, like an aircraft hangar.
Ew.
And inside, he sees other disc-shaped crafts, shiny like chrome, just parked there.
So the ship he was on was parked inside a bigger ship, or a base.
That's the implication. And then the ending of the experience is surprisingly anticlimactic.
Yeah.
He is taken to a smaller room with 3 other human figures.
Yeah.
This time they're not wearing helmets. They don't talk either. They just put a mask over his face.
An oxygen mask style device.
Yes. A clear plastic mask. He tries to fight it, but he's too weak. He blacks out. And the very next thing he knows, he's waking up on the cold pavement in Heber, Arizona, watching the light from the bottom of a craft shoot straight up into the sky.
It's a terrifying experience, but you know what's almost as terrifying in its own way? The reception he got when he came back. Because for every person who was relieved he was alive, there was someone else just waiting to tear him and his story to pieces.
The skeptics, the debunkers, and the battle for the truth that followed was almost as brutal and traumatic as the abduction itself.
We absolutely have to talk about Philip, class.
The arch nemesis of the UFO community for decades.
This guy was on a mission. He was a senior avionics editor for a major magazine. A smart guy, no doubt, but when it came to Travis Walton, he was just ruthless.
Class had a methodology that can be summed up pretty simply. If you can't attack the data, you attack the people. He couldn't explain away the polygraphs, so he had to prove the loggers were all liars with a motive.
So he comes up with the forest contract theory.
Right. Class argued that Mike Rogers was so far behind schedule on the logging contract that he invented the entire UFO story just to claim force majeure, basically, an act of God, to get out of the contract without a financial penalty.
Which, you know, it sounds plausible on paper until you actually talk to the loggers.
Exactly. The crew pointed out that this was just factually wrong. A default on the contract would have been bad, yes, but a criminal investigation for murder is a whole lot worse. And more importantly, they actually completed the contract later.
Oh, they did.
They went back into those woods and finished the job after all this. So the supposed motive just doesn't hold water at all.
But Class didn't stop there. He went after the witnesses personally. He allegedly tried to bribe them.
This is the darkest part of the whole skeptical response, in my opinion. Steve Pierce, the kid, testified under oath that Philip Class offered him $10,000 to sign a statement saying the whole thing was a hoax.
$10,000 in 1975. That is life-changing money for a 17-year-old logger from rural Arizona.
It was an absolute fortune. Class even flew to Texas, where Steve had moved and was living under a middle name to avoid the press, just to track him down and make this offer in person.
And Steve Pierce turned him down.
He turned it down. He was broke, he was struggling, his life was a mess because of this, but he wouldn't lie. That speaks volumes about his integrity.
Class also pushed the drug narrative really hard. Oh, they were all just high on LSD in the woods.
Which, again, we can debunk with the actual medical data. The polygraphs ruled out drug influence during the event, and the blood tests on Travis ruled it out after.
It feels like there was a lot of classism involved here. You have these rough guys, these so-called rednecks from Arizona, and the media just sort of assumed they had to be unreliable.
Absolutely, 100%. If this had happened to a pilot or a doctor or a university professor, the treatment in the media would have been entirely different. But because they were blue-collar workers, it was easy to paint them as drunks or druggies or just simpletons. It was character assassination, plain and simple.
Despite all the mudslinging, the story held up. But for a very long time, it was just their word. Until 2014. We need to fast forward here because this is where the story shifts from anecdote to hard physical science. Let's talk about the tree rings.
This is a fascinating development. A researcher named Ben Hansen and a team went back to the exact site of the abduction, the clearing, almost 40 years later. They weren't just looking around. They took core samples from the trees surrounding the spot.
And what did they find in those core samples?
Accelerated growth. The trees in the immediate vicinity of where the craft had hovered were producing wood fiber at nearly 30 times the normal rate in the years immediately following the incident.
30 times? That isn't just a good rain season or some fertilizer.
No, it's a massive, unprecedented spike in growth. And it wasn't random. This is the smoking gun for me. The growth was directional. The side of the tree facing the center of the clearing, where the craft was, had dramatically thicker rings than the backside of the same tree.
So whatever energy came off that ship, it hit the front of the trees like a blast wave of something.
It mimics what scientists see in trees exposed to high levels of radiation, like in the red forest near Chernobyl. Radiation can disrupt the cellular regulation of the tree, sometimes causing this frantic, almost cancerous-style growth. It anchors the story in physical reality. Something happened in those woods that fundamentally altered the biology of the forest itself.
That is mind-blowing. It takes it out of the realm of a campfire story and puts it into physical evidence. But speaking of changing perspectives, Travis himself has changed his own mind about the event over the years, hasn't he?
He has. For decades, he viewed this as a terrifying assault. He was a victim of a hostile act. But as he got older, he started to reconsider the intent of the beings.
This is what some people call the ambulance theory.
Right. The hypothesis is this. Maybe the beam wasn't a weapon at all. Maybe Travis, being the impulsive guy he was, got too close to the craft's propulsion drive as it was powering up to leave.
Like standing right behind a jet engine when it starts up?
Exactly. The energy discharge might have accidentally hit him. It could have stopped his heart or critically injured him. So the aliens didn't abduct him to probe him or study him. They picked him up to save his life.
That changes the entire narrative. It's not a kidnapping, it's a rescue mission.
It would explain why they didn't really experiment on him. They put him in a medical bay, they revived him, they let him recover, and as soon as he was stable, they brought him back. They were, in effect, interstellar Good Samaritans who had to clean up their own mess.
Sorry, we zapped your friend. Here's a ride home.
Essentially. It reframes the horror into a profound misunderstanding between two species with no common language and vastly different technologies.
So if this is true, what does it all mean? If they are here, if they are occasionally saving loggers in Arizona, why don't they just land on the White House lawn and say hello?
Travis has a very pragmatic view on this, and he thinks it's all about economics.
Follow the money.
Always. Travis argues that if the technology exists to propel a craft across interstellar space without fuel, some form of free energy, then the petrodollar collapses overnight.
The entire world economy is built on oil. If you introduce a zero-point energy device tomorrow, the stock market crashes, global corporations crumble, and you have riots and anarchy.
Exactly. He believes the government keeps it secret not to protect us from scary aliens, but to protect the economic status quo. It's all about maintaining the existing structures of power and finance.
And there's also the zoo hypothesis that Travis touches on, the idea that maybe we just aren't ready with them.
As he put it, we are a species that is still obsessed with intertribal warfare. If they gave us their advanced technology, we wouldn't use it to explore the stars, we'd use it to blow up our neighbors more efficiently.
That's sad, but it's probably true.
So they observe. They intervene when there's an accident, maybe. But for the most part, they keep their distance.
Before we wrap up, I really want to touch on the human cost of this. Because we get so caught up in the aliens and the cover-ups, but these were real people whose lives were changed forever. Steve Pierce, the kid, his life was basically ruined by this.
It really was. Steve hated Travis for years. He blamed Travis for bringing this on all of them, for the ridicule, for his own family thinking he was possessed by the devil. He was completely ostracized. It took them decades to finally reconcile.
But Travis, The resilience of this man is just incredible to me.
It is. He has faced more than 40 years of constant ridicule. He has taken 5 separate polygraph tests over the decades and passed them all. And he has never, ever embellished the story. He hasn't added dragons or laser swords over the years. It's the same consistent story every single time.
That consistency is the hallmark of truth.
It really is.
So let's just summarize what we have here. We have 7 witnesses who never cracked, not under police pressure, not for money. We have a police investigation that conclusively ruled out foul play. We have multiple polygraphs that all scream truth. We now have physical evidence in the tree rings. And we have a man who went from victim to survivor to philosopher about the whole thing.
It is a case that forces you to look at the evidence, not just the impossibility of the claim.
I want to leave the listeners with a final thought, something that Travis himself has mentioned. He suggests that maybe we are all being conditioned, that all of this, the sightings, the movies, the stories, it's a slow drip feed of information.
An acclimation program.
Right. If the Walton case was an accident, an unintentional contact, how many other abductions are just similar misunderstandings? And if they really are conditioning us, what on earth are they preparing us for?
That is the question, isn't it? Maybe we aren't alone, and maybe, just maybe, the neighbors are finally getting ready to knock on the door.
On that note, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the UFO Forums podcast.
And keep looking up.